Oh, it's so
And
good. It's one of my favorite recipes to teach people how to cook, especially if they're like, vegetarian or vegan, because it has so many layers of flavor to it
yeah,
that it's just like a really, really great recipe,
it is a
you
great.
know? So, so I'm not really doing what I would normally do.
It's okay. It's okay.
So I was working on some collages and my daughter forgot the bag. So because we had a lot of bags today because it's a long taping day because we had our cooking class and it's a lot of stuff. So
It's okay.
um but what I thought would be cool is that we love Caribbean culture. And then I know that you're very opinionated. So to talk about like, where do you see like Caribbean food going? Like, what kind of events would you like to see? Let's like co-create and dream what that looks like. And then I'll write notes about that. And then we'll see how we can make that happen.
Sounds good. It sounds good. I will tell you, I think that Caribbean food is poised to be like just sort of explode on the American food scene the way like Korean food did a couple of years ago, and Mexican food did 10 years before that. I think Caribbean food is really poised for that because you know our food is really, or it's an organic fusion. There's so many influences that have managed to come together just seamlessly. It's not forced. It's not like out from the mastermind of a chef. It's from life and living, and the flavors are so great, and now they're so accessible. So I
And
don't
so
know.
many things haven't been like I was saying today in class, like I said, so many things, like just looking at Trinidadian culture and like I was talking about shark and the things that I like, like shark and bake and like, well, how many different types of bake do you have? You have coconut bake, you got flour bake, you got, I mean, there's stuff that I don't even know because I'm not Trinidadian, but I'm just these are things that I learned when I was in, Trinidad, and I was saying about all your different condiments, like, and if you go outside of the city, like how many different condiments do you have that a lot of people, maybe even in Trinidad, like in Port of Spain, don't even know because they've never been to Maracas Bay.
It's true, and it's funny. I was reading a Trini food group on Facebook the other day, and somebody asked for a recipe to make this pepper sauce or this like pepper condiment called mother-in-law, which is very common as far as I know. It's more common in the South, and a lady in the South taught it to me from my cookbook. A lady who lived in a town called Pinal, and it's all these chop fine little vegetables with a lot of hot pepper, and it's called mother-in-law, right? Because it's supposed to be sharp like the tongue of your mother-in-law. It's not particularly nice, but that's what it means. And people in this group were saying, I'm looking for a recipe for mother-in-law. I don't know what goes in it. And these are Trinis, right? Living in
Mm-hmm.
Trinidad. So you're right about that.
Well, we
Uh,
were talking about that, like especially like some of the, like I don't know how old you are, but like being 50
I'm
and
older than you, says.
yeah, you
Well,
know,
I'm 52.
yeah. But like, but a lot of people, and like we probably know these old-fashioned recipes because like, you're a journalist and a chef, and like I love hanging out in the kitchen. And I was just saying about, like um Bammy, like how many people don't know how to make Bammy? I don't know how to make Bammy, or I don't know what you call in Trinidad blue draws, but
Yeah, yeah.
or well, I'm like, what is like the regular? I don't know what even the regular term because these are old fashioned terms for them. Like people like, what is this? It's like a cornmeal pudding,
Yeah.
in a banana in that's cooked in banana or in tinfoil. Um, but these are things that if I ask like my younger cousins, they've never had it before. It's like one of my favorite things. So when I go to Jamaica, my grandmother would always make it as soon as I would get there. But it's like labor intensive, like so I was saying a lot of the things that are Caribbean food, they're labor intensive. And so you know, my family lived by the ocean, but in a seaside, like, you know, it's not a city town. So we had more time than ever to be able to do these things. But, you know, in Kingston, when I went there and I consulted, I was like, they thought I was so strange because I was like, you guys don't eat vegetables? Because they don't eat vegetables. And I'm like, I didn't understand how these are people that have money and all that kind of stuff. But because they're in the city, they don't grow their own vegetables. They don't have time to cook their own vegetables. So they're like eating things out of tins. I'm like, oh my God, they're eating like bully beef. And I'm like, we ate bully beef because you didn't have money.
Right, right,
You know,
right.
like,
You know, and also, but you also have to remember this. We are kind of stuck in the era of when our parents left, right? So, and they progressed on. So, as just like in America, there's packaged food and
yeah,
fast,
right, exactly.
right? So too in Trinidad, so too in Jamaica, so too in Barbados, right? But we are stuck in that era. Like my father came here in 1954, right? So everything I know, like what we're talking about, 70 years ago almost, right? That people are, that I'm thinking about Trinidad. Like I still have the man's tins he used to make sweetbread in. These things are like 70 years old. He toted from Trinidad when he came, right? And I still use them. So yeah, when I go back, they're like, what are you talking about? Like what is it, but these things have real meaning. Like blue drawers, which is also called Dunkanu,
Yeah.
right? Or Thai leaf, it's called also. In Trinidad, it's called Paney. Um, you don't see it. And it's one of the, but think about that dessert, right? It's a dessert. What is it made from? Cornmeal or maybe pumpkin or cassava, yuca, right? And some sugar and some cinnamon and whatnot. I mean, not expensive. It is, and tied up in a banana leaf. I was going to say fig leaf. We call bananas figs in Trinidad. And a banana leaf and steamed or boiled. And this is a dessert of people who don't have much, but it's the most wonderful thing. But now when you
Loved it. I loved it. I always loved it. I was always happy. My grandmother would always make it for me because she knew that I loved it, you know. But I like the old fashioned things. Like I love Bammy. Like I was saying, I love green banana. I love green plantain. Like I don't mind sweet. I like natural sweetness, but I like June plum. I like jackfruit. I love passion fruit. Like I like the sweet and sour things,
did you
you
ever
know?
have, do you remember a fruit in Trinidad? It's called oh God, I just forget the name, and it's my favorite thing ever. Oh, pomerac. We call it pomerac. It's it's called otahete apple.
Oh
Melon
yeah,
apple.
no, I don't like that. Mm-mm.
I love that so
It's
much.
like it's too watery.
I don't like the consistency of
Yeah,
it.
I don't like the like a lot of the Caribbean fruits, like custard apple, like
I
I
don't
don't
like.
really care for that too much. Like soursop, I wouldn't want to eat it. I don't mind the juice, but
Yeah,
I want to eat soursop.
yeah, I can see that.
Um, like mangoes, I was saying today that, you know, like how Caribbean people, they want it nice and like all juicy and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I like it when it's just ripe and I use a knife and I cut it. And I said, like, I know I'm Jamaican, you know, but that's how I like it. You know, I like bananas right when it goes from green. I like green bananas, like boiled, obviously. And then when the banana goes from green to yellow, that one day, and then after that, it has to be in it has to be a fritter or a banana, you know, cake or something like that. But I don't really care for bananas like that
I don't
either.
like them so much either. It's funny that this otahete apple, this pomerac, my husband, who's American, said when we were in Trinidad, he's like, I don't know why you like this so much. It tastes like a strawberry. And I was like, damn it! It sort of does. It sort of does taste like a strawberry. And once he said that, I could never get it out of my mind that it tastes
Well,
like.
it just has so much water in it.
No, I just like it so
I
much.
don't know.
I don't know what it is about it. I think I like the consistency. I don't know what it is, but yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm not, I mean, I'll be honest, like all these really sweet candies they have, I'm sure they have them in Jamaica too, like fudge, coconut fudge, and
Oh yeah, I don't like those.
too sweet. It's
Too
too sweet.
sweet. Yeah, like it's too sweet. It's like, African American sweet tea. I'm like, no, it's too much.
But it makes sense, right? Because it came from places where sugar cane was plentiful and grown.
Yeah.
That's.
But I just don't feel like I don't feel like that quenches my thirst, especially like in a hot environment.
I don't
Um,
like tea. I don't like tea like they do home, how they put condensed milk in tea.
yeah,
I do
I
not.
don't like that either. I don't mind it in coffee and in Milo, but not I don't drink unless it's chai. I don't drink any sweetness in my tea or any milk either.
Me either. And that's for me, that's the Iranian side.
Yeah.
I just drink straight, black tea. I don't nothing in it. But which is funny, my Trinidadian family, they do not understand that. They're like, no milk, no sugar, no condensed milk. I'm like, no. Just so you're gonna drink it just so? Yes, I'm gonna drink it just so. But yeah, no, it's a fascinating thing. I mean, but back to your question about what I would like to see. The thing is, and here's the thing I would love for people to understand, people outside of the Caribbean to understand. Every island has their own food. So there are things we all have. That is true, right? There are things we've all adopted from each other, and you will find in each island. You will find patties of a kind everywhere, and not even because it's from Jamaica, but because it's the English that brought these meat.
Exactly. Yeah.
So every English island, you're going to see that, right?
And I mean, and we talked about like I'm doing this Pan-African kitchen lab, and so talking about different foods from across the diaspora. And so like I mean, even in Africa, you have hand pies, and those come from the English, and they're all a little different, like Haitian, their pate is different than Jamaican patties, which are different than callaloo pies, or someone patties from a different country, or empanadas.
Yeah, but it's the same product, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, so you will find those things, right? You'll find these continual things. Find cocoa tea throughout the Caribbean. You'll find some kind of smoked meat, barbecue meat, something like that. You probably find curry everywhere now too. But over and above that, but that's like in America saying, yeah, in every state in the United States, you're going to find pizza. You're going to find it. You're going to find a hamburger. You're going to find.
Well, that's why like today I made and I'll do this, like I made a little video, but I want to make a curry map, because the curries they're all very different. And saying I looked at a picture of Tobago and the curry and the crab curry, and how sweet and how nice and how different that is than other curries in Trinidad, and I was saying about like how a duck or goat curry is going to be very different than a chicken or a shrimp curry. And even if people still use like packaged spices, still people put their own mix to it.
And that is where they have a difference. Like you'll buy curry powder, and there's a separate curry powder that is a duck curry powder. I don't remember what all is the difference, but the spices are a little bit different, right? Because duck, especially down there, is a kind of a wild duck. It's gamier, right? So, and then they have a different kind of curry for wild meat and so on. But even above that, every island has specialties based on what they have there. Like you go to the Bahamas and you're going to find a million ways to make conch, and they're all good, right? Because they have a plentifulness of conch in the Bahamas, right? They're just everybody. Like if you go to Barbados, you're going to get fish fry, right? And they're famous for it. So, and this is what I think people do not understand. They don't understand two major things about the Caribbean. The first is that this is a great food culture. Like people come there, they come on cruise ships, or they come on to resorts, these closed resorts, and they eat some kind of something that is got a flavor or whatever. They call it Caribbean, and they do not know like how phenomenal the food that is really eaten is. That's the first. And the second is that every island, you go to the French Caribbean, my God, that food is, it's like the highest level of French cuisine and all the Caribbean ingredients and the West African influence. Like that is, I mean, beautiful, beautiful cuisine. And I wish people knew that about the Caribbean. It's not just one or two. I mean, if I'm done tired of people saying, "Oh, you're Caribbean." I like jerk chicken. Well, first of all, that's Jamaica. Thank you. I'm not Jamaican, but I love it too. But that and or they'll say curry. I know curry. Okay, great. But there's so much more.
So what do you think that the Caribbean can do? Because having tried to work with, like some of these tourist boards and such the other, and being, Caribbean American / Jamaican, I do think that we have a better understanding about how to sell these things, but people in the islands don't, and they don't see that. And they don't necessarily see like I don't know if I went and I said, well, I think that, well, you Rochelle, she was saying, like, she was asking me about like teaching, you know, I don't know, like historical cooking classes or, like old fashioned cooking classes. And I'm not necessarily like half of me is interested and half of me is not, because like I'm not a traditional person. Right. And so even like my approach to making rice and peas, just like the other, it's like, I'm a bootleg like Caribbean cook, and that yes, I will learn what I need to learn to make sure that all of that is preserved. But on a day-to-day, I'm not doing that. And like even when I was saying about, trying to make homemade coconut milk, even if I wanted to, how like after $25, like I said to people, like we've bought like five coconuts and they're $5 each and all of them were bad. So now I don't even try to make coconut milk, because what's the point? Like $25 later.
Oh, I mean, and what? No, I never do that. I mean, let me tell you, I make sweet bread, coconut bread a lot because my family loves it. I'm not grating any coconut. I'm buying frozen coconut from the Indian store, and it's coconut, the fresh frozen coconut. I'm not opening coconuts and grating them. I'm not, especially because it's so expensive and it's not the same, right? But
well, if they weren't spoiled, I wouldn't mind, because I mean, I love breadfruit and I don't mind buying the breadfruit. But when you buy the breadfruit and most of the time they're bad, then I don't buy breadfruit anymore unless I know like there's a particular store in Boston where I'll go and then they'll pick it out, and then that 9.9 times that it's going to be turned, it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, and they stand by it and they'll let me bring it back if it's not good, but unless it's my aunt in Irvington in New Jersey, she just sends the like, I don't know, her and that manager, wherever she goes to shop, they have it like this. And she just sends us the most wonderful breadfruits that seem like they're straight off the tree in Jamaica. Because I love breadfruit.
I love it too. This used to make my father crazy. That I love all provision, right? I like yam, I like cassava, I like.
These are root vegetables, people, if you don't know what provisions are.
Yeah, provision is, so there's ground provision, which is all the root vegetables, but then some people will call things like breadfruit as well, and green banana.
Yeah, and then like chocho and pumpkin.
Exactly, because it's filling, starchy, basic foundational food, right? So he just was like, wow. He'd always say, like, he came to America He used to say, he said, I come America cutting the tail for the eating provision, right? So, because what he meant was like, I work my behind off in this country so you could be eating steak and whatever, and you're still eating the same damn provision that we were eating in Trinidad. And I'm like, I like it. I like it a lot. And I love breadfruit so much. And you cannot get a good one. That is so true. You cannot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to your question, your statement is interesting about whether people in the Caribbean realize. I think there are some people who do realize that the food culture could. So let me say this. Let me back up and say, unfortunately or fortunately, for a lot of the Caribbean, depending on how you see it, tourism is the main business, right? So they look at some islands look at things through that lens. Will it bring tourists? So some places are doing that kind of culinary tourism. There are those tourists who will come and they're interested in that. But unfortunately, most people go to the Caribbean who are not West Indian. They go there for what? The beaches.
But I think that though, in talking to them and doing like market research, and especially like the people of color that go, that a lot of those tourism boards discount. Um, they don't look at like, high earning Black people going to Jamaica. They don't look at that. And I'm like, those people they've been to Jamaica 11 times. Like they go and they stay in Round Hill, they stay in the villa, like, they're executives, they bring their families, they go every year. And the reason why they go is because as Black people, they feel comfortable and they feel good. They feel like the way they're treated and they love the food, they love the culture, all of that. And those people are not considered. But then also just the regular people that go, like, I feel like a lot of people who go to all inclusives,
Yeah.
we can have a good time in Jamaica, but the ones that do not have a good time, they usually went to an all inclusive where everything was contained and they stayed there. And even when you stay in the all inclusive, um, like people like the real food. They have the American food, and then if I like, because I've gone down there in all inclusive where like I'm consulting, and that that's part of my payment is to stay in the all inclusive. I'm not gonna say like no, I'm not gonna stay here, but I'm gonna make sure I eat well. So I go to the kitchen and I'm like, look, I'm Jamaican. I want the Jamaican food. I want the food that you feed each other. I want the food. And then they're like, oh, okay. And so they put the food over the side, and then people see it, they're like, oh, that food looks really good. And there's one all-inclusive that I went to that they really did actually a really good job with the food of Jamaica, and people love that. That was one of the most hopping restaurants, actually. And I think that, when I've cooked food for my students, they're like, Miss Nelson, we want the real food. We want the real heat. We don't want that, fake heat. They're like, we want that real heat. They're like, give us that real curry, give us that real jerk. So I think that there is more of a market for that. But then also, like when I go with my friends to Jamaica and they experience the real Jamaica, like how I grew up, people enjoy that 1,000 times more than being on a resort, because that's so much more interesting, being able to go swimming and go fishing and catch shrimp, and like I bring them to my uncle's farm and we cut, like, he has a whole tea garden. He has over, like, at any given time 20 different types of mint and all kinds of stuff, and you cut it down and you're like, okay, like what kind of tea do you want today? Like I feel like that is the beauty of the Caribbean. And there's this whole notion of selling, I don't know like what their version of, I don't know if the of Europe is, but even like when you go to Europe, it's like it's so much fun to go on those like farm trips or all that kind of stuff too. So
I agree with you. I think, and no, it's a dilemma. Because I think you're right. There are those groups of people and they are overlooked, and there are people who are interested. But cruise ships comprise a huge business in the Caribbean, and I would say that for the most part, that's not who's, coming on a cruise ship. Um, it's and I struggle with this a lot. I always wonder, like, why is it that Caribbean food? I mean, I think it is starting to have its moment, but why isn't it, like, to me, it has all the same hallmarks as, let's say, um, Latinx food, right? Like Central American food and South American food and the food of Spain. And to me, like, there's a lot of the same hallmarks in terms of the flavor profile and the diversity within under one umbrella of language. So what is it? What is it about that versus, the Caribbean? You know, it's hard for me to see it objectively because for me, when I was growing up, and I grew up in New York City, once my father left, once we left that particular area of Brooklyn where all the West Indians were, there were no West Indians. There weren't. There were not Caribbean people around. There was not, right? So I always struggle with this idea of like, oh, well, people just don't know. They're not around any West Indian people. But that isn't true now. It is not true, right? So there's plenty of people like us born here, first, second.
I feel like our culture is like very insular, and even like when people came over to my house, because like my mom is like straight ahead, like Caribbean, like she's using the machete on the chicken. She's not making boneless curry chicken. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, to this day, she's not making, but like she's taking out the machete.
Yeah. There has to be 800 little bones in every piece. I know.
Okay, like, I mean, and like she would say, like when she would make ackee and saltfish on the weekend, she's like, if you don't want to eat the ackee and saltfish, you don't have to eat it. I'll make you scrambled eggs that will look like the ackee and like so. And so I do think that a lot of our tastes are kind of more acquired. It's not like you can put, like with Mexican food, like people do that Tex-Mex where they just put a lot of cheese on a whole bunch of stuff, like, and so I don't know if people can really talk intelligently about moles or like how complex like Mexican food, like Mexico is huge. Like tell people, like, look how big Mexico is. Like Mexico does it have 20 states? I don't even know how many states it has, but all those states have different things going on. And but the way that Americans like translate that culture is just, like tomato salsa, maybe a little green salsa and some cheese and some beans. I don't know. But there's so many different things that are wonderful. And
yeah, I think you're right. I think now that you're saying this, it's making me think that so in that scenario, there was a couple of things that people could latch onto and understand. And we do see this in the Caribbean, right? That's why people are like, oh yeah, jerk, oh yeah, doubles, curry chicken, I got it, But as you're talking, I'm thinking about our food, and truth be told, a lot of it is not classically beautiful cuisine, right? It's not.
yeah,
Especially, as I keep saying, food of people who made do. They used what was available to them and what was there, and melded their cuisines. It's not. It doesn't always. It doesn't look European. It doesn't, because it's not. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, fish. We eat fish with bones. There's bones in that fish. There's bones in the
head and the tail and
chicken
eyes and
it is.
Well, it's just like, also you're just like, you're like, well, do you want some cow foot soup? Oh, or do you want some chicken foot soup? So then because like when people say like, well, I want to elevate the cuisine or I want to do that, like I feel some type of way about that too, because like I don't know if voyeur needs to be elevated like with sauce anglaise. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, no, I know, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think that there's a chef in Trinidad. His name is Khalid Mohammed, and he's amazing. And what he does is he takes all the ingredients and all the flavors, and he presents them differently, right? Like he'll do a stew oxtail, but he does it in such a way where he also uses French technique, and it's gorgeous. It is still stewed oxtail. So I think there is a way to do it. It's, it's, listen, I mean, and look, I've been known to do things that are not completely traditional. Like, a lot of people were super angry at me. I wrote an article, I gave some recipes to Epicurious for weeknight cooking, and I gave my recipe for pilau. And Trinities were up in arms because I make a dry pilau. And I do that because my mother was Iranian and I prefer Iranian rice. And Iranian rice is
right. Well, that's that's so funny because I was, doing research about the differences because I'm, teaching people. So I know I'm trying to prepare myself for the different questions they would ask, and then looking at like the difference between the pilau, the biryani, and this, that, the other. And then like pilau is like wet, like looking at the pictures. And I'm like, I don't really like wet rice.
And I don't either. And I mean, it's traditional Trinity thing.
And it's the same thing with like jollof. Like, different people make the different cultures. Like you have people who make shelly jollof, like you're saying, or you got people who make mushy jollof,
Yeah, and I make jollof all the time, and I make it dry because I'm into that Iranian style. And in the article, or in the recipe, I said, this is the Iranian technique. It's my preference. It's normally much wetter.
Yeah.
And you get much wetter if you want. This is just me personally. I'm not saying this is the Trini classic way. It is not. Because
well, that's why I tell people also that like everyone has to do like what your personal preference is. It's like the sense of authenticity, like, authentic and you don't like it doesn't mean anything,
and also authentic has to do with authentic to you. I'm just checking this tart, because the thing is like, so for me, that's authentic because I am a person who is mixed Trinidadian and Iranian. So to make a Iranian style Trinidadian pilau, that's authentic for me, right? And you're right. I mean, I could force myself to only eat it the way that everyone says to eat it, and then I'm not eating it because I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like wet rice either.
This is completely Iranian. I'm so picky about rice. Like I'm cuckoo about rice. It's just.
It took me the longest. That's probably one of the hardest things that it ever took me to learn how to do. And then also how to bootleg it because, you Caribbean people, you're like, oh, like you just put your finger down and then it's like, right, above your knuckle and this, that, the other. And you're like, I know, like my mom and my aunts, it doesn't matter if it's like for 2 people, for 100 people, they will get that rice right. And me, like, I have to like measure out the rice, but then also just make sure I put less water in it. So if I mess it up, then I can just put a little bit more, then put the foil on it and then put it in the oven to make sure that I salvage it.
Oh, that measurement works. Like 1 knuckle, it's basically like 1 inch above the surface of the rice. Because placement, it's always going to work. You just want the amount of water to be 1 inch above the surface of the rice.
Okay, I'm good. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I will. It's like making dumplings. Are you good at making dumplings?
Okay at it. I don't make it that much, but I'm okay at it.
I'm not. I wouldn't share my dumplings with people. I can make them for myself, but they look.
They don't look nice.
They look real ugly. Like if people want to crack jokes on them, I'd be okay with that because they're like really. But I don't make them. I never make them because there's certain things I just leave for my mom and my aunts to make, and because I don't eat dumplings every week.
My father used to make it every week. sancoch, you know, like and there's dumpling in it, right? So I don't actually, you know.
But
So I,
even when I make soup, I don't usually, it's like very rare that I'd ever make a dumpling. And like, I mean, boiled dumplings, I feel fine about. It's like the fried ones.
I was you're like,
Well, because like they knead them and they look all like my mom, like if she's making 100 dumplings, they're all perfect. All of them look the same.
yeah, yeah,
My dumplings are like all like the pieces of batter are not all mixed up. They're like, they don't look good at all. They don't, and they're not like nice and moist and soft, like, a
yeah,
dumpling.
rubbery, like, yeah.
Yeah, they're not. Mm-mm. But I mean, but I prefer green banana and provision. Like that's, and if I'm gonna eat something, like I'll have Bammy or the breadfruit or something, but I can roast a breadfruit and I can fry a breadfruit. Like I can do those things. And those are things that I like. If I like dumplings, then I suppose that I would learn how to make them really well. But if I never had a dumpling ever again, I'd be okay.
It's funny that you said that because I haven't even given a thought to a dumpling since you just said it. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't made that in a long time. Because
Like
I
flour dumplings, I'm like, I'm okay with that. And even when my mom puts it in soup, I'll have like one spinner. Like I'll have the spinner. Um, but that's enough for me. Like I want the pumpkin. I want like a piece of yam, like that's what I want. A piece of chocho, that kind of stuff.
yeah, I don't. You know, it's funny. I don't really like flour. I realize this about myself. I mean, I have a problem with it, but you know, some people love bread. They love dumpling. They love even bake. You know, I like bake, but I'm never gonna be like, oh, you know, I need to make some bake. I just don't care. You know, about
I
flour.
won't be like I don't want to make it, but I'll be like I want to eat it though. I like bakes. Those are good. Like
Yeah,
I like all different types of bake. I like the coconut. I like the you know, regular flour, but I love the fried bakes. Those I love shark and bacon, saltfish and bake. When I go to Brooklyn to get the saltfish and bake, I love that.
that was our Saturday breakfast. Was salt, fish, and bake. That was what it was. Bulgel, right? It's like a saltfish
Yeah.
and bake. I haven't made bake at all. So the funny thing about bake for the people who are listening is bake is actually fried. So fried bake, it's called bake, and fried bake is the most common. It's like a beignet, but not sweet. And then coconut bake is actually baked, which is like nonsense, right? Like this is the thing about our, you know, our food. It's like, wait, what? The bake is not baked? No, it's fried. But no, yeah, I'm just not I did make doubles the other day though.
Oh, you did?
You have to use my doubles recipe. It's really, I have to say, not to
Okay,
out.
I'm gonna try. I try. Like I talk myself out of baking a lot, like pastry, but I love doubles. They're so good.
Here's the trick with doubles. Even though it's annoying because you know the dough has to be so soft, and you have to just oil up your hands really well. Like it's so soft, it's almost like bleh, you know, and it's annoying to work with it, but it has to be like that to make that nice, beautiful, soft, like bara it's called, right? So um, that's the thing that nobody knows how that was created. Doubles. Did you know that?
No, I know. Well, then now that I've been like, I've been like thinking, teaching this class, I was thinking about like where are my blind spots, the things that I would like to go and learn about
Right.
um more directly. And like, yeah, like I don't know about bake, like where does that come from? And then, like how did someone come up with like frying these doubles and then putting the stuff in between? And
I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you see this?
a little bit, it looks good.
Okay.
Oh, that does look nice.
Yeah. I'll show you a cold one.
Mhm.
It's already been chilled. It has to chill, otherwise, you know, it's not particularly.
Does it hold its shape?
Um, it won't hold its shape, right? Correct. It'll just like ooze everywhere. And it also it doesn't taste good. It's the thing that has to be cold for it to taste good. But I'll show you the one that I made before, which, let's see. It's got a little mashed up, but you can see it's.
Yeah, it looks good.
Then you would just decorate it with, whipped cream and then shaved chocolate. My family's like at home, like waiting for. There's two, and I'm like, yeah, well, biggie. There's two.
Sounds delicious.
But bake, I suspect, came from those same French planters that we were talking about, because they're essentially beignets. That's what they are, right? If you added sugar to them, while bake has baking powder, and beignet is a yeast-based thing, it's essentially that idea of it's a donut, right? It's the same. Yeah. But doubles, really, it's still a matter of debate. Doubles are only in the last 20 years or so.
Oh, really?
25, 30 at the outside. It's not like a long heritage thing.
Oh.
So like curry chana, the curry chickpeas, yeah, that's always been around for sure. But the idea of this yeasty spiced dough that is then fried, it's like something between an Indian puri sort of and a bake in a way, right? The nearest I've ever gotten close to finding out is that a street food vendor came up with it and started selling it, and then it became so popular that it just became a national thing. But nobody can tell you how it started. It's not based in anything. I mean, it truly was created in Trinidad.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's a Trinidadian, purely created in Trinidad. Kind of like nachos, right? Nachos are American. They're created in and we know how, but it's like completely American. It's like that.
Oh, that makes it even more interesting. I love doubles. Where do you like to go in Brooklyn?
So there's a place, I can't remember the name of it now. They actually won a James Beard Community Award.
So yeah, so that's where I go. They moved. Is it, let me see.
It's not
four, isn't four in the name? I think four is in the name.
I don't remember.
They're really good.
There's also a couple of good places in Richmond Hill and Queens. The thing is, they're not hard to make. It's just, you gotta be, you gotta plan to make it. It's a yeast dough. So you need that hour or so for it to rise, but you don't rise it twice. You let it rise once and then you fry it up. It's not hard. It's not hard. But yeah, that's where we go in Brooklyn. And then there's a place, or used to be, because of COVID, you don't even know what's open anymore, what's going to.
I know.
But there was a place called Alley's in Richmond Hill. Can I tell you a funny story about doubles? So, my husband is from Connecticut, right? He's American. And every time he had to go fly anywhere for business out of Kennedy Airport, which is near Richmond Hill, this Indo-Caribbean area, but he could get his doubles, and he loves Trinidadian food, and he could get roti and curry. And as like a true West Indian, he would collect all his food and eat on the plane. And I'm like, you're eating curry on the plane with these people? He's like, yep, I don't care. He's eating his doubles, he's eating his curry chicken and roti. I'm like, oh my God. I said, everyone on the plane hates you. You realize that, right? Because either they're smelling your food and they're hungry, or they can't believe you brought this like very aromatic food stinking up the whole plane. I mean, it smells good, but still, if you don't want to smell it, too bad. You're smelling it. He is so funny. So he has all.
I have to say that when I went to Paris, I flew out of, I always try and fly out of like Newark, because that's where my family lives in, like, you know, Irvington and Maplewood. And so like they can make sure that they drive me and they can pick me up and they can feed me and they can take care of me. So when I was going to Paris, I said to my cousin, I was like, I want to have oxtail before I leave. And I couldn't eat my oxtail before I left. So yeah, in like
No.
a container. When I got to
Nadine, looks like you froze this time.
and I woke up and then took on Champs-Elysees after that.
Nadine, you froze for a
So-
bit.
Yeah, we lost you a little
Oh, I'm
bit.
sorry. Oh, so I was saying that I had my first meal was oxtail when I was in Paris,
Mhm.
you know, because I had jet lag and I didn't want to go out and like figure out all these different things I had to do in French. So it was just like great to wake up and have like my cousin's oxtail and then go to sleep and then wake up and then go down the Champs-Elysees and then take on the world after I had oxtail inside me. I was like, okay, gotta speak French now. So the place is called A&A Bacon Double Roti Shop. So I will attest that it is amazing. I try and get it when I'm there. You have to go. I'm mad that they don't serve roti. They start a little later because they're Caribbean. So I get up really early, so I want to eat first thing in the morning. I think you have to wait kind of till after 11 at least to get the roti. You can get the breakfast items, which is like doubles and bacon and stuff like that in the morning. But if you want roti, you have to wait till after 11.
An interesting thing because pumpkin, you know, mashed pumpkin and roti is a very common breakfast. So I'm kind of surprised.
Well, they have, I was just gonna say, they have the pumpkin there and they have eggplant and they have all those things that you can put in the doubles, you know, but you can't, the roti is not, Nancy McDermott's trying to come in. But the roti, they don't start it till 11 o'clock because I've called to make sure before I go, because you know, like I try and get the food on the way to New York or on the way out, you know.
Funny. That is
So yeah. Hi Nancy, how are you?
she's on mute.
Yeah.
Hello, thank you for joining us.
Hey Nancy.
We have a fellow cookbook author. I'm not a cookbook author yet, but we have two fellow cookbook authors here.
Nancy is a
Hi Nancy, how are you? We're just talking about Caribbean food and how we're trying to take over the world and, you know, do some amazing events, or I don't know. So you didn't say like how you feel like that's gonna change.
you're on mute, Nancy.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Please take over the world. The seasonless food of my people is killing us. Come on. I'm seeing it everywhere. I got a book maybe about a couple of weeks ago. It's a Caribbean food in London, and
Oh,
it's
the two brothers. Is it two brothers? Two young guys.
I think so.
Is it called, they're like called something flavor?
On yourselves.
Oh, they're two young dudes. They're brothers.
But are they called like something flavor?
I don't remember. But they're on the cover.
It's
Okay.
called backwards. It's Belly Full Caribbean food in the UK.
Okay.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's just beautiful. It's kind of a Saveur magazine. It's like a, you know, a visit to places and the story of the people, so that, you know, here's Horizon Foods and a roti and just very sweet pictures, you know, really capturing the life and, you know, neighborhoods. But it's huge. I mean, it's huge. Look at this book. This is enormous.
I wanted
All
to
these stories.
do a book like this for the United States. I wrote a whole proposal and a whole thing, and then you know what happens? The marketing people always kill everything, right? Like, you know, an editor who I won't name, but who we all know and respect and love, wanted it, and the marketing people were like, no. I don't know that Americans think Caribbean food is a thing. And it
Yeah,
was
because you're withholding it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that I feel like, because I don't know, like Walker's Wood and Virginia Burke brought me in to like do some stuff, and then I had to talk to what Virginia Burke is a really big cookbook author in Jamaica,
and she
and
was the initial group of people that created Walker's Wood as a collective of women from the community up in where it's up in
St. Anne. I can't remember what it's called, what that neighborhood is, where it's called, but it's a whole area where they buy from farmers and they make the jerk seasoning, and it's I don't know if it's still a collective, but like even the logo and everything was done by artisans, and so she brought me in to try and give some advice about how to make jerk become bigger. And I said to do at the time, I don't know if you know Damian Marley, he's one of my crushes. But Damian Marley, he's the son, Nancy, one of the many children of Bob Marley. He's very handsome, as are all Bob Marley's kids, but he sounds a lot like him. And so I heard of him like 20 years ago. So this is like probably like 20 years ago when he just came out, and I said, you should have Damian Marley go around and do a college tour, but do like a high-end-ish like festival, like where you have a jerk festival, you have, Red Stripe, and, like you have, fun, like how it would be like spring break, but do it here in America on the different campuses. And I said, then you're locking in your market where, in college, they're like, oh my God, I just have to put this on some chicken,
Exactly.
And I said, you'll lock in your market right there. I was like, those kids are going to be, they didn't listen to me.
the other thing about Walker's Wood though, and I think this is why they didn't listen. Walker's Wood spent so much time researching the origin of an original jerk. So it's like so authentic to that as close as possible to that original recipe that the Maroons used, 250 years ago. And I would suspect that's why. Like they probably thought, I just kind of knowing the folks involved, I would suspect it was more like.
I mean, the thing is like, though, the people that they had me talking to, and this is the thing though, like with the publicity people, they don't deal with publicity people that have ever been to Jamaica. Like you have to deal with people that have been to Jamaica. And even like I'm Jamaican American, but I'm just an American to a Jamaican. So I'm saying that I look at things from, yes, I am Jamaican, but I look at it from totally different eyes. And I've been all around Jamaica, and they would have loved it. Like people, like, I mean, I'm talking about, like going to like, the colleges that I went to Tufts, they would have loved that. And they would have been buying that jerk forever. Like, and that's because I did that when I was in school. I introduced people to jerk, and I introduced people to Walker's Wood because it is the closest thing to authentic,
Is it a seasoning paste?
Yeah, it's a seasoning paste, but it's the closest one to authentic. And
is that a lot of what no one tells anyone is that what makes jerk is that you have to use pimento, allspice wood, to smoke it.
yeah.
Allspice wood. Oh.
Wood, yeah. So you have to, because most people are like just grilling, they're not smoking, and then they're not using like, allspice wood. It's like very hard to get. You can maybe get chips. I think that
They don't.
huh?
It's very hard to get it because they don't export it.
Right. I thought you could get the chips though. I thought you could get the allspice chips.
Maybe. It's a limited resource is the issue.
Yeah.
The Caribbean and particularly Jamaica, and it's hard to get. And so I remember there was a time when, the guys who would get it back in the day in New York, get the the bundles of the Word to Smoke, they had to really get it on the down low because you're not supposed to bring it out of church, you know. But that's what makes real jerk. Well, I can tell you that pretty much very few people in the United States who have had jerk in the United States have actually had jerk, because that taste is not comparable. You know, so what we have here is barbecue or pan chicken that's jerk seasoned, but it's not the thing itself, right? But yeah, you're right, Nadine. I mean, you have to kind of meet people where they are. And that would have been a great idea, because you would have had a captive audience, and then you would have gotten this kind of hearts and minds and tastes captured. But it's a struggle. Like well, I don't know. The thing about us as West Indians, we're interesting because sometimes I think that we don't care if anybody likes our stuff. We really don't. We're like, we like it too bad. So
like, we're gonna drink some chicken foot soup, and you know,
right? I mean, you know, it's only now, like, I'm fascinated, and Nancy and I have talked about this, I think, a lot over the years. I'm fascinated with the growing interest in black cake and fruit cake, right? Like, I have so many stories. Last year, I saw so many stories about fruit cake, and I was like, well, okay, what is this about, you know? Nancy, Nadine came over a couple of years ago, and we made it together. I showed her how I did mine.
Oh, how wonderful. Oh my
it was
God.
great. It was like, it's a bucket list item, you know?
Yeah.
So I have one for you too, Nancy, for you to teach me how to make something. I don't know quite yet. I'll go in one of your books, but when we're out of COVID and I can come down to North Carolina.
Oh, have a good time.
I'm gonna come on your doorstep. Okay, don't reject me now. I don't like
Ramin, I'll get a 2-for-1 ticket. Come on. There's a lot of food down here. There's a lot of food. We'd have a good time. Be good.
I'll probably bring my daughter. She's my sidekick. I don't know though. Like, she's 12, going on 55, and you know, on a day to day, whether she likes me or not is, you know, like, okay, does my daughter like me today?
I have to tell you, my daughter's 15, and and you know, my father passed away a long time ago. So she never met him, but damn, if this kid doesn't act just like him. She acts like a little West Indian man. She comes into the room, and she has all kind of criticism for everything I'm doing, right? Leaves, comes back again, right? Criticism. But she does it just like a little West Indian person, you know. She's like, why are you bending over the food like that? You're gonna give yourself indigestion. Sit up straight. Pull the table closer if you have a problem. Do you need a different spoon? Leave. She comes back. You're sick. Do you need some water? I'm like, what is wrong with you?
How old are you?
You're being channeled? Your grandfather's channeling himself through you? What is this?
Do you feel like you're being parented though? Like, I feel like half the time, like, my daughter's trying to parent me, and I'm like, I don't need parenting.
So in our case, here's the problem. She's taller than I am. Not that I'm tall. We know I'm not tall, but I'm about 5'2", so she's probably about 5'5" now, 5'6", because my husband's tall. So I think in her mind,
Something has shifted.
Exactly. So yeah, so she does try to parent me. That's true. So, and now she's starting to cook, which is good because she's cooking things, you know. But
does she want you to teach her, or, and Nadine, how about your daughter? Do they like?
Well, I mean, I think that my daughter's more into it now. Like, before she wasn't into it. Now she's more into it, but she's more into it because of TikTok. But I'm like okay with it, because she goes on TikTok, and you know, she makes some stuff, and I don't know what it is, but it tastes good, and I didn't have to make it. So that's all I care about.
Magic.
True. I think, you know, I have to say, I feel bad for my daughter because I am really not a nice person to cook around, because I do not, like, if you don't know what you're doing, you need to stay away from my kitchen. I do not like it. I do like, I'm happy to cook with other chefs, but like even well-meaning friends who are like, let me help you. I'll peel a carrot. I'm like, no, you need to go. Get out. Get out. I get so
Talk to them. Somebody come talk to these people.
Well, I tell people about learning how to cook in a Caribbean household, and that like people ask incessant questions, and I'm like, if you just look, just chill, you just chill, because it's like, I don't know about Ramin, but it's like in order to be in the kitchen, it was a privilege, and you couldn't mess it up, like so you couldn't talk too much, you definitely couldn't put your hand in the food, you know. Ask too many questions. You're like, I'm just gonna smell this. I'm gonna look at what they're putting over there, and then I'm gonna test it out on my own, and then come ask them about it. But you couldn't ask them, like my aunts. If you asked incessant questions, it was like, get out. Don't come back in here.
No, just let me pass along the wisdom of the ancestors.
You know what I do?
Not
Like
today,
I told people, I
Satan.
learned a lot, but you learn through your senses. And
watching.
And since they didn't have recipes anyway, you just had to, you know, like I was saying, that brown stew chicken, like my cousin, she uses oyster sauce, you know, and like a lot of people wouldn't tell you that, like they wouldn't tell you that, like, and there's certain things I don't tell in my recipes, like if you're in my class, I'll tell you, but I'm not going to put it in my recipe because there's certain secrets that, you know, you should have. So like one of them is oyster sauce for brown stew, but if I would have been like, oh, I can't believe this, she wouldn't, like, she would, like, you just have to just be quiet, just look, like smell.
Yeah. Something today that they put, which I thought actually was brilliant, dates in their black cake, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, beautiful. That sounds wonderful. The texture would be so sweet.
So nice, right? And I was just like quiet. I was like, yeah, keep talking. Like, wow, you know, but you know, it's so smart, such a smart thing. But yeah, no, you couldn't be like, I remember my father, you couldn't ask him, like, if you'd be like, so how much is that? He'd be like, how do you mean how much it is? It's like a handful. You see me put a handful, how are you asking me how much it is? And he'd be like, oh, let me just be quiet now. And like, I'll figure it out later. Like, you just, you know, they have a cup, it could be the teacup. I was just talking to somebody else about black cake and how they measure the fruits. It was Rochelle, Nadine. It was an old teacup that they used to, and they knew how many of that teacup, and the cup broke. And it was like a disaster. This cup that had been in years and years and years measuring fruit for black cake, the cup broke. And then they kind of figured they got one that's approximate size. So this is how you do. No, you can't ask a lot of questions. My brother says that I'm like my father in the kitchen. Like, I just have no patience for it, you know, and people will come and stand in my area and I'm just like, move. You're just like him. I'm like, move now, move.
Whatever, just get out of my way.
Oh.
Well, I want black cake. Keep bringing black cake out there, because I think there's a danger of us taking over, because there's a recipe attributed to Emily Dickinson, and there's a recipe by Lori, the book Home Cooking, Lori Colwin.
Very cool.
So if, you know, people who know nothing about it, then that's, and, you know, the whole, you know, that is a recipe that somebody made that's not of them, that's not from them, that cuts out the whole story. And I want it to be out, you know, just way out there, and with the, you know, different island, you know, how it is Trinidad and Virgin Islands, and, you know, what are different ones, and bakeries making it versus at home, and what people do. It's incredibly rich, and that holiday connection, the tradition, it doesn't just light people up for their own tradition. I think that really means something to us on a primal level. So I hope that continues. I think there can't be too much. And people say, oh, fruitcake, but it's interesting. I mean, it's still, whether people love to hate it or just the old connections. And it's like, I don't like this. It's like, leave that out. Put in dates, put in apricots. So I hope that holiday, I hope that's going to be bigger and bigger. So
hope so too. I and I hope people realize that it's truly like there's so many holiday traditions that are attributed to different cultures. Like the Bouche Noel, right? Like it's there, people make it, but they get it. They're like, this is a French Christmas tradition, and you're right. I just want people to, with black cake, to know, yeah, make it, perfect it, learn how to do it. That's awesome, but understand what it really is, right? It took me years to perfect it because that was the one thing my father couldn't make. It was the one thing
He couldn't make it.
Ours used to come from Tobago. My cousin in Tobago used to send it every year. Send one in what, Nadine? In a Danish butter cookie tin.
Oh my!
Always.
You didn't die. You didn't die.
No, because there's so much rum in it. It didn't matter how long it took on a ship to come. It was going to be fine. And but he couldn't make it. He could never quite do it. So I had to teach myself. And it took years to perfect to the cake and I have a secret ingredient that's actually not in my recipe of the book.
Oh, you told me either. Yeah. You gotta come over again.
I'm gonna have to come over. I'm coming up there.
Yeah.
All right. So ladies, it's 8:33. It has been wonderful being with you. Ramin, I always say, this is one thing I always say, that Trinidadians and Guyanese have it on anyone in the Caribbean in regard to black cake. I have Jamaican people looking at me like I'm crazy and saying like, I don't know what kind of black cake you've had. I'm like, I don't know what kind of black cake you've had, because I'm not saying that Jamaicans don't make good black cake, but I'm saying that Trinidadians and Guyanese make better black cake. And we've always had our black cake sent from a Trinidadian or Guyanese from somewhere like they used to be in Irvington and now they're in Miami, I believe, so you gotta give people their due. Yeah. So I want to say thank you to Ramin for being here. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else who is out there in Facebook land. It has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope to do some interesting things with Caribbean food. So I like 2 cookbook authors. I've been going through and looking at things that don't have recipes. So there's not a jerk cabbage recipe that is roasted, for instance, so trying to do more things like that and put those things out there. And Yankee Magazine did ask me to do another article, including for I probably will contact you, Ramin, on sweet potato pudding.
Oh my gosh.
So
this is graded
puddings, but yeah, great, yeah. And I grew up being my aunts, their sous chefs, but I'm not really good at baking, so it will be like learning all that stuff. So
sweet potato pudding is, I've been on the trail for years. I read about it, I guess, for maybe when I was working on Southern pies or maybe Southern soups and stews as a side dish. But I remember my mother talking about it, saying, there's this sweet potato that used to have, and it wasn't a dessert, and it was great. So that was just sort of a little thing. She wasn't really much of a food person or a cook. And then I started to hear about it just here and there. And I've never seen which side of the grater it's grated on.
Well,
and I figure
I've seen it on both sides myself.
Oh, so that or that?
Sides, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That orange sweet potato, it's the Caribbean sweet potato.
Yeah.
Oh, which is what is?
White.
Is it a yam? Is it a different family or?
What is it? It's Bautia? Is that what it is, Nadine? What is it?
I always am really bad with the different names. I want to go through and look at the, I also mix up the Latino name, the Spanish name, and oftentimes the English name. So I want to do like a chart for myself that has all the different pictures with the different names.
Right. So sometimes we call it yam.
Yeah.
I think it's called Bautia, like also in Puerto Rico and so on. the closest thing to it is the Japanese sweet potato, the yellow
Oh, yeah.
thing to it. But the one we're talking about is actually harder. It's a harder root vegetable.
Oh, okay.
It's so good though. It's so good. Yeah.
So next week we have Teojos Avery, who is a jazz saxophonist, and he has a album that is out. He is a professor and also a friend who I haven't talked to in a long time. He went to Berklee School of Music, and I know him from my times in Boston, and it's so great to see what he's doing. It'll be our first musician on Co-Create, and he's gonna do a little concert, I think, and some other
That look
things.
cool.
So he's very interesting and a Renaissance man. And but all my guests have been interesting and have so many things to say, which I appreciate. So Nancy, we probably have to have you on. We
Oh,
got
no, I'm shy and I couldn't possibly. Sure, I'm available the rest of my life. Yeah, I'm free that day. Look, I just checked my calendar.
I
Wonderful.
love people who are so easy. Well, thank you. Love you both. Thank you.
Huh? All right.
So
Bye.
good
Thank
to
you
see
everyone for
Oh,
joining us.
I want that cake. I want that pie.
Come get it. You know where I live.
All right. Enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Rose.
Mhm.